Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. My name is Kate Dorsey. I'm your host. And today we're going to be joined by Laurie Gerber. She is head coach at the Handel group. And I'm so excited for her to get to come on. And I'm actually going to figure out how to invite her, which means my fingers may be getting in the way. So I do Wellness Wednesdays every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. I think it's 6 p.m. Okay, 6 p.m. Hey, Katie, thanks for joining. 6 p.m. Pacific. And I'm super, super excited to be talking to you today about the inner critic and about overcoming the inner critic, because the inner critic is exactly what is standing in the way of you having everything that you want and desire. And like, no joke, I'm like actually being super serious there. So let's see if, hey, Katie, thanks so much. Hi, Robert. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. So we're just going to give it a couple moments. I just sent Laurie the invite, so hopefully we're able... Hey, Laurie's here. Okay, so got it. Bringing you on camera. I might have to go MIA for a second. Hey, Jay, welcome. Hey, Catherine, good to see you. I'll see you, I think, tomorrow. I hope you're going to be at this tomorrow. If not, I know I'll see you over the weekend. Oh my gosh, we have liftoff. Yay! Oh, so exciting. Yeah, for those of you folks watching, you may not know, we tried this previously and we could not connect. So this is super exciting.
Yay!
Yay. So Laurie, I was just telling them that we're going to be going into the inner critic and overcoming the inner critic. Do you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
I do. I'm new at the technology where I have to hold this phone and talk to you at the same time. That is not good. Hold on. Forgive this terrible view.
I totally get it.
I'm Laurie Gerber. I'm an executive and head coach at Handel Group Life Coaching. For those of you who do not know Handel, we are a corporate consulting and life coaching company. We teach our method of coaching at MIT, Stanford, NYU, Yale, Columbia. It's really codified and comprehensive. But I am mostly, I'm in the world of individuals. So I talk to people all day about how to have what they want, and that has a lot to do with managing this guy, which is what we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome, because like we are going to be talking about the inner critic. So I'd love to get into like how we can start to hear the inner critic's voice, because a lot of folks don't necessarily realize that the thoughts that are being judgmental, harsh, critical are actually the voice of the inner critic, or even what the inner critic really means.
Yeah, my joke is we think we're listening to the voice of God. You know, it's just like, oh, if it's in my head, it must be wisdom. Right? It must be brilliant. Yes. And we really don't question it. We don't question the voices in our head. So one of them, we have many exercises in the Handel method, but one of the exercises that we have all our clients do is something called thought logging, where we literally have you stop 3 times a day for 3 weeks and log every thought you can think of for the last 5 minutes. It's an incredible, right? You know the difference between thinking about something, talking about something, and writing something down. Mm-hmm. So you get, what is that? Something like 60 logs of what you were thinking about in 5-minute chunks. And guess what you find in those logs?
Not good stuff.
Not all good. A lot of planning, you know, there's like different things depending on the person, but it's what mostly shocks people, this is what shocked me, is that it's like 7 things, right? It's not 150, right? My like negative inner dialogue is, it's not that creative, really not that creative, shockingly not creative. So that's one thing. And then you also just get to hear what your inner, you know, obviously there's other voices besides the critic, but you get to hear your particular brand. Like I learned mine says you're an idiot. Like literally it calls me an idiot. That's its word. I'm like, who taught me that word? Like, you like, why idiot? You know, and it says, I think I might suck, right? It says words like suck and idiot, right? It's fascinating. Or that was stupid.
Yeah, it's so funny because it always does go in the same. It is the same. Like you think that you do think a bunch of thoughts. You don't necessarily. You have a lot of thought loops that are like the same scenario over and over. And mine loves to be so subtle. Mine loves to be like, oh, Kate. Like it's like we're going to be.
What were you thinking?
Yes, exactly. Yes, Laurie, exactly.
Yeah.
But it always
you silly girl.
Yes, it always starts out with okay. Like,
Okay.
like
It
subtly,
really makes me wonder where we heard these, right?
right.
And what I also notice in mine is the inner critic likes to criticize other people basically the same way. No surprise,
Yes.
right? All the
Yes.
inner ones also go out.
Mm-hmm.
The inner
Yeah.
critic is pretty much judging everyone on the same stupidity levels, idiot, like has the same things. Like some people are looking at how people look. Like, are they pretty? Are they ugly? Are they,
Yeah.
I'm all about, are you an idiot? Are you smart? Like, it just, how I was raised, my lineage, that's the kind of thing we like to critique all day long.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so important for people to realize, that the inner critic is really born out of our history. So it's really like, because like I would love for you to talk a little bit about like where the inner critic originates from, and like why it is almost like this certain set of ways of talking that we're always hearing it.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough doing that exercise to start to see how unoriginal it is and how to trace it back, right? Like you could literally go, oh, these are the 7 thought themes I have. Which one's my mom? Which one's my dad? Which one's my stepdad? Which one's my culture? Right? Like it's family culture and it's culture. So there's not, and I am always amazed by how shocked people are when I explain to them that we have everything our parents have, that there's no way we don't have what they have. Maybe it's a reaction to it, but it's still based on what they had. And there's no way around that. Even if they didn't raise you, you have it. And you have what the people who raised you have. Because if you think about, if you grow up in a French speaking household, you speak French. You cannot avoid learning French. You can't. And so it's so, and people are amazed by that analogy because they're like, oh, I thought I was choosing all this. Like, I really thought I programmed this. No, you didn't. It all got programmed when you were not consciously getting programmed. Could you consciously unprogram it? Yes. But could you help learning French in your French speaking household? No. If you wanted to start speaking Swahili, could you? Yes. But it would take moving somewhere and practicing and learning a new way to talk. And it would take years before you would dream in Swahili, because those are the neural pathways you've built.
So you're really saying, like, one, we've learned it. We couldn't help but learn it. It was given, just like depending on the household language, you're going to learn whatever's spoken in the household. And subtly, you are learning what's being spoken in the household, in form of what criticisms are kind of used.
Course.
Yeah. So,
yes.
And then you're suggesting that we log our thoughts 3 times a day. Is that how we start to catch the inner critic?
Well, first you just have to get to know what's running. What's the program that's running? What's running in the machine. Then you can see you're only up against 7 things or 3 things. It's not like I can't control my mind. No, there's like 7 thoughts that you got from your parents that you can understand are not true or real, that you can probably argue with, and then you can start to try to leash them, right? You can, like, so amazing to me. I don't know if you have kids, but I used to think it was okay to worry about the health and well-being of my children. Like, as a Jew, this is a cultural thing, right? Like, the more I worry, I'm helping, right? Like, I think I'm actually helping. No, that turns out, spiritually speaking, not to be true. So I made a rule. I'm not allowed to do that. I'm just not allowed to entertain my children's death. I could have the thought for a second because I'm a human and I saw the news, but I am not entertaining that. It's like the thought train comes in. I want to get on. I walk in one door. I walk around and walk out the other door and get back on the platform. And then the train can leave the station. I'm not going on that train.
I love it. And if I do, the thought train.
Right.
Yeah.
And then and if I do, I can pay a consequence. Like the Handel method has this awesome concept that we can actually control ourselves with a system of promises and consequences. So for a while, every time I would worry about anything, I would throw a coin in a jar, and that jar would have to go off to my children, because I don't believe in worrying. I don't believe that is a useful mental train, right? I don't believe that that's an exercise that helps me get to my dreams or my visions or helps anything go better. Thinking about something, sure. Planning something, sure. Writing something down, yes. Worrying, no. So I would literally pay a coin for each time I caught it. So that got me good at catching it. And then that it was like a little burn, like a little annoying every time I had to pay. So it diminished.
That's such a fantastic way of going about it. Because, like, first off, they are thought trains and we do have a choice. And, like, I so agree with you about worrying. It's like the most fruitless waste of energy that you can do. And I love the idea of, like, using almost like, it's like reminds me of like an old school method of like, when you give yourself a consequence, over time, you're less likely to do it because you don't like the result that you experience. it's not
Right.
fun for you. It's not enjoyable.
Right.
And so building in like consequences and like, do you build in rewards too for like the positive thoughts, or how does that
Well,
work?
the funny thing is that the reward is having your mind free to dream, to commune with other people, to be creative, to do the things that you wish you would do. So the reward is built in controlling the negative thoughts. But
Got
what
it.
we know about human beings scientifically is that we don't respond well to rewards. We are not incentivized. We're not incentivized by rewards. We think that we're already entitled to many, many things. But if you take away something that you feel entitled to, like your TV at the end of the day, or your coffee, or your chocolate, or your whatever, Instagram, like if you take away from somebody the thing they think they're entitled to as their treat, all of a sudden you can get them to change almost anything.
That's really interesting, because like you're right, like we are so much more apt to avoid losing something or avoid paying a penalty than we are motivated to be like, oh, I might like win this or get to experience this or have this opportunity. We're
Right.
so much more like you get a free gym pass, right? You're literally given something free and you don't
A
go.
reward. You don't
Yeah, you
use it.
don't
Yeah. And
you
what's so
don't even
cool
use it.
is you can actually circumvent a lot of your negative inner dialogue and inner critic by using a promise and consequence. I mean, for example, I have a screenwriter as one of my clients who, of course, he wants to finish his next screenplay. But of course there's fear. Of course there's inner critic. I mean, what writer doesn't have an inner critic talking all the time, right? But he's got to pay the NRA if he does not finish, or it might have been the political party he doesn't agree with. I can't remember
Whatever
which it
he
was.
doesn't want to pay.
Whatever it was,
Yeah.
that if he didn't do his pages each day, each week, or whatever, and all of a sudden he doesn't care what the inner critic has to say. It's just not important, right? He cares what he feels about paying the party he doesn't like. That's what he cares about. And so he is thinking about avoiding that. And that is what he's thinking about, because your brain can only be thinking one thing at a time. And if you're thinking, how do I avoid, for example, I have dinner with my kids at 6:30, by the way, and I'll be cutting out before then, no matter what we're talking about, because if I don't, I owe them $20. And I am not paying my kids $20 just because I can't keep my mouth, because I can't keep my comments to 25 minutes. Right. So I'm not even worried. Like I know I'm going because I know I'm not paying that $20.
It's so funny that you say that, because I just flashed to this leadership training program that I completed, and it was like we had this thing about being on time, and like I literally was so motivated to not get in trouble and it wasn't about being in trouble, it was really about upholding your word. And it was just funny though, because I was like, oh, I'll be on time. Like, no, like I just did not want the consequence.
Everybody has situations like that, right? I tell my kids to set the table. They can't hear me. I say, set the table or you lose your phone. Suddenly they can hear me, and they can set the table in 30 seconds flat, right? It's like we don't use most of our brain, right? We're not using most of our capability. We're not using our problem solving ability. We're not using our creativity. We're not using any of it because there's no pressure. If all of a sudden, somebody was going to lose a pinky, you would become so brilliant.
Yeah, or like how I just thought I'm going to go with the gym example again. How like if you sign up for the free class, but if you don't go, you'll have to pay $10. You'll still go. Like,
exactly.
So
exactly.
it's so funny. So I love what you're sharing, because it's really like, one, we need to be able to hear all the thoughts. When you can hear all the thoughts, you can tease out about the 7 main thoughts that are the inner critic. And from the inner critic, we can then build in consequences, because we don't like consequences. We are so motivated as human beings to avoid pain and suffering like it's the plague, which makes total sense, because it's so just true. Not fun, right?
Yeah, just use your humanity. Use your humanity in honor of your dreams, right? Use that. Use how much you love your vice for your dream. Earn it, right? I have to earn my TV at night by taking a bold action at work. Do you think my inner critic would like me to take bold actions at work and do things that scare me and talk to people I might get rejected by? No, but I want my TV at night, right? I work 11 hours a day. I like to chill out at night with some Netflix, and I don't get permission from myself to do that unless I have done something brave for the day. And you know what's so cool about that? I really recommend that to everybody, to have a rule for themselves to do something brave every day or every week. Because talk about a proactive working against your inner critic.
Yeah.
What then happens is, instead of you trying to get away from fear, instead of you avoiding fear or things that scare you, you are chasing it. It's like a checkbox. It becomes something you want to do every day to get credit for I did something I was afraid to do today. So then sorry, can I curse?
Yeah, go ahead.
Fear becomes your bitch, right? You're not its bitch anymore, right?
It.
Fear becomes your bitch.
I love it.
And that's what we want.
So good. Yeah.
We're never going to go away, right? It's
No.
always going to be there if you're doing anything interesting. So
yeah, because fear is a protective mechanism, and so it's designed to keep us safe, and yet it will always stand in your way. So I love that you're like, no, dominate it. Like don't bother to just whip that into shape. Like go.
Don't try to make it go away. Chase it.
Yeah. So, and the thing with that is as you do that, your circle of comfort expands. So the thing that was brave 4 months ago is easy. Exactly. You know, I remember how scared I was to sing karaoke, and now I'm where is their karaoke?
Where's my karaoke? I need my high.
Yeah, totally. It's just so funny. So the other suggestion really is to face fears, bravely take them on, dominate them so that they stop controlling you.
I have so many more ideas if you want them.
Yes, I would love more of your ideas, Laurie. These are fantastic, and I know our audience is going to love them too.
Yeah, one of the things I also have my clients do is actually ask other people what doesn't work about you, because we are so sure we know what doesn't work about us, and we get ourselves into such a diversion and such a tizzy over how terrible we are, and that's a lot of what the inner dialogue is doing. But who really cares if you don't care about the impact on some other person, right? Remember how I said all that stuff you do inside, you're also doing outside, and the more you do it to yourself, the more you're allowed to do it to other people too. So ask people, what are my 3 best qualities or strengths, and what are the 3 things you wish you could change about me? And find out what the real tea is on you. What's the real thing you should be working on? Because I had no idea. I had no idea the real things I should be working on. I should have known if I had been listening, but I was too busy listening to the voice in my head. So when I interviewed the people closest to me, I found out the real things I needed to be working on. Listening better, being more generous, being more romantic for my husband, right? And so then I could start to actually work on the things that were actually affecting my life and the people in my life, instead of worrying about, am I pretty and am I smart enough? Nobody cares if I'm smart enough. Nobody cares, right? That was my little game I was playing with myself. How about, am I kind enough? Make sense?
I like that. Yeah, that makes total sense. So I've always done the what do you like about me? And I've done that more as figuring out what my strengths are and how to use those. But I've never actually, I'll just be really real and transparent. I've never thought about, hey, what do you think isn't working for me? And that's not
just
to say that
wait.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've definitely worked with coaches, but I've never actually sent a text or just called a friend and been what's not working for me? So I love that idea because it's so cool. You can learn so much because other people see us so differently than we see ourselves because we're so stuck up here. We're so in our heads about everything that's happening. Yeah.
And the same 7 conversations over and over again that are real. It's honestly quite selfish how self-absorbed we are with our own negative inner dialogue, because that's all time and energy you could be spending caring about what another person is experiencing or what they need or what they're thinking or what you're going to collaborate about or being creative or coming up with a poem, right? Literally that's all you get is these moments of the day. And if you spend them saying mean things to yourself, you're doing no better than all the people who have abused you.
So it's I agree with you so fully, because it's you other people really matter, and you can what you're talking about reminds me of being present and engaged and what's happening right now in the here and now, and not caught up in the dialogue. And when you're up here, you're missing out on life, on relationships, on connection. And so if we're talking about really living more out from here, more in our heart, because that's what it reminds me of, living more in your heart, living more in alignment. How do we get there? What do we need to do to really get there?
Yeah. Okay. This will be probably my close to final soapbox. The main tool that we teach people when they first come to Handel group is dreaming. And if you're curious, by the way, what area to start with, we do that current reality quiz, which I think you probably have in the comments, where you can actually do a little quiz, a little self-assessment, and see where do I start? Where do I even start? Well, you start in the parts that are most painful right now. And we teach you a method of how to dream, of how to articulate a dream that gets you connected to your heart. It's a particular kind of language where it will make you feel something. It will force you to ask why you care about something. And that's really important because that starts to battle with the negative voices. The voices in your head that are scared, the voices in your head that don't feel like it, that want to brat out, or the voice that just thinks you're not good enough, or it's not good enough, or it'll never work. We call that the weather report. So if there's a competition, right, like it's going to rain, they'll never listen, you know, there's no good men, you're too old, you know, right? So if it's a battle, right, if you can only be thinking one thing at a time, I'm going to have my dream, I suck. What we're doing is strengthening your ability to hear both of those voices, to hear a beautifully articulated dream and to be able to hear the negative voices and tell them to shush. So dreaming is a really important tool, an important skill to start to crowd out those other voices, and so that you can hear those other voices for what they are, which is the BS opponents of the dream. And then we also teach people to get really good at debunking what their mind has to say, right? Like having a ready answer, like, you know, I had so much BS, it was ridiculous. You know, like what was I basing all that negative self-talk on? And some of it was lies, right? Some of it was misconceptions, but some of it was true things I was holding against myself. So how do you fix that? You clean it up, right? You go back and you actually right the wrongs. You tell the truth about things. You turn over a new leaf. I stopped interrupting my husband. It changed everything. I suddenly liked myself better because I stopped doing the behavior that was messing up my marriage. Yeah. Right? I started eating in a way that felt right to me. So I stopped talking to myself about how my body looked because I was doing the right thing. Yeah. So that's where then promises and consequences kind of bring the whole thing together. You articulate and feel the dream. You debunk the negative concepts or theories that you're coming up with, and then you make and keep promises to start to prove new theories and to generate new thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you're sharing because it's really like, it's not just changing the thoughts, but it's taking the actions that are in alignment with those thoughts. So it's really like, we have to clean out what we've all, like, I like it BS, all the garbage, I call it BS too. All the garbage that we've been telling ourselves, clean it out, and then get clear on what do we really want? And like, what are the things that we really want to go after? And that's like one of the reasons why I really think that the inner critic is like the destroyer of your dreams, and you don't even realize it. Like, you are not even aware that it is crushing what you want.
Yeah. And if you are aware, you are very sweet to it. You're like, oh, you poor thing. Oh, I know you've been hurt. You know, and unfortunately, a lot of times in therapy or in certain kinds of modalities, you will really cater to it. You'll really listen to it. You'll really give it a lot of airtime. And it is important to give it airtime so you know what it's saying, but it's lying to you. So you can't, you gotta at some point go, you're not the boss of me anymore.
Yeah, because it is. It's literally lying to you. It's dominating you. It's controlling you, and you have no idea. And you've really you've got to clean it up. You've got to unhook from it. If you want to experience things in your life that you truly desire, you have got to quash it, to silence it. Yeah. And so how can we go ahead.
No, I just want to underline, if you don't take the actions consistent, if you don't clean up the things you've been lying about, like the things you hold against yourself, and every person has a list, we find, of about 30 things. Really, everything from abortions you had that you never talked about, to cheating, to, you know, exaggerating on your resume, to stealing, to you name it. Everybody does have a list that they are holding against themselves, that they are paying the bill for inadvertently, but not paying the actual bill. And so I get upset sometimes with people, you know, where the spiritual teaching is just let it go, stop thinking that, don't think that. If you don't actually go do the work, you're not going to be able to stop thinking. Your subconscious is too smart.
No.
So you do have to do the work.
Yeah, you absolutely do have to do the right, because you actually are hooked into shame. You're feeling really badly about yourself for it. And like, you can't just ignore shame and hope that's going to go away. You've actually got to do the work to unhook from it. And then Laurie, I know we don't have that much more time, but how do we start to choose better thoughts? How do we start to is it really in the action, or is there more to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a summary of what we've said. If you write those dreams and then you read those dreams to yourself regularly, so you're tapping into what your heart has to say, your desire, Your desire is pure. Your desire is beautiful. There's nothing negative in your desire, right? So if you start just to listen to that voice of desire and honor it for what it is, regardless of how quickly you get it or how, whether or not you're good enough, right? That is going to get you on the right track. And I just also, I want to recommend, we call it personal integrity. When you align your thinking, your planning, and your acting with your highest ideal. So if my highest ideal is to connect with my husband, I think good thoughts about him, I consider us a team, I plan a date night, I listen when he talks, and then I do that, right? Then I follow through on that plan. That's integrity. That's personal integrity for me. When I am in that paradigm, there is no, am I good enough? That actually disappears. That whole paradigm is so bankrupt. It's so old fashioned, and you can't win it even when you win it. Like even when you go, oh, I am good enough because I, whatever, hit my weight, or I got my ring, or I, whatever. That's just setting up the next fail, right? Like even when you're winning, you're losing because the paradigm is BS. The paradigm is, am I good enough for who? The real answer is, am I good enough for me? Do I respect me? Do I approve of my actions based on my ideals? And so many of us are just still trying to meet the ideals of a culture or a parent or a person that we haven't even questioned, do we agree with those ideals? Because we don't want to look at our own. And what is my ideal, and am I living true to that? So the whole concept of personal integrity replaces the am I good enough train. And the question is just, did I do what I said? Consistent with my ideal. And if I didn't, let me just pay my consequence and get back on track, or enjoy the benefits. Those are your two choices.
Yeah, it almost simplifies it, where it's like, I'm going to pay my consequence instead of being like caught up in the vicious cycle of like, oh, you did it again. You ate that Oreo cookie.
It simplifies it completely. Yeah. It silences the BS because it's all a diversion anyway. Like, oh, I'm such a terrible person. No, you're not. You picked to eat the cookie. It doesn't make you a terrible person. You just wanted your cookie. In fact, you're kind of badass because you just ate it anyway.
Yeah, you went for it.
So go do your 100 push-ups, and if you really don't want to eat that cookie, then make it 200 next time.
Yeah. I think this is such a great way of hearing it, unhooking from it, clearing it out, and setting yourself up to begin to really live your truth and live in alignment with what you want to see different, so that you don't have these thoughts that are just like weighing you down over and over and over, and you're not frustrated and you're not beating yourself up and stuck in shame, which is really powerful.
Let's end there, but we have to tell people.
I think so too, because you got to go with your kids.
I got 2 minutes, and I do want people to know, though, if they ever want to find out about Handel group coaching, if you're interested in what we do digital programs, we do private coaching, we do all sorts of things, and we offer 30-minute free consults for anybody who wants to hear about the different choices, see if it's a fit or not, and hopefully that's in your comments as a possibility so that we can help anybody who might be interested.
Yes, you guys definitely check out the Handel group. It's obviously like Laurie just gave you a sample of just like how amazing their work is and their approach. So I believe Katie dropped it already in the comments, but I'll double check and post it if it's not. All right, enjoy dinner with your kids. It was
Thanks
so nice
so much.
All right,
okay, bye for now.